Another challenge is the price equity requirement, which has only been in place a few years, but basically I think you're familiar with it, that if you fall below the funding level for a free meal with your paid average price charged, then you have to raise prices at least 10 cents until you get there. The idea behind it from USDA's perspective is they don't want a school district to subsidize the paid meals, the paid meals with money that should go towards kids eating healthier, and the reason the free reimbursement rate goes up every year is to do that. So they're hoping that you're going to spend money on more fruits and vegetables for the free kids, and if you hold your paid meal price the same, then essentially they assume that they're funding that. And so they've made that change, but districts that aren't losing money don't have a reason to raise prices, or maybe their prices are already pretty high and they're concerned about drawing people away from the program, have no choice, they have to raise it anyway, and then possibly see participation declines that were really unnecessary. Or in some cases they have a fund balance, they don't know what to do with the money, but yet they have to raise prices. So some of those rules have drawn concern from districts, and again, we're not here to make a recommendation, we're only here to present some information and give you the option. Our company manages the program, but it's still your program, and so whatever it is the school district decides, we'll go ahead and do. But some things that I did as Chris asked me to put some scenarios together, things that we considered first was that if we raise prices enough to cover the funding that we would lose by getting out, you're reimbursed not only for paid meals, but free meals and reduced price meals. And that level goes up every year. And so it amounts to about 35 cents per meal that we would have to raise the paid price in order to subsidize all of that subsidy. And we felt that if we raise it that much, especially given the high rate you're at, that the participation would decline and you would really be in worse shape. Now that more people would get away from the program. So we assumed a 10-cent increase would be the most that we would want to recommend, and tried to put a budget together with that in mind. We wouldn't want to reduce quality in any way to save money, so we proposed the same program basically that you have now, just without the USDA funding. We would continue promoting healthy, balanced meals in that we would still have entree, fruit, vegetable. We would still participate in the subgroups as we would in any other school, and the grains. So it'd really be the same program on paper from what it looks like. The only difference is because we wouldn't be required to do the half-cup minimum fruit and vegetable, for instance. We wouldn't have to make the kids take it if they didn't want it. For the last, has it been 10 years we've been here, we've had a fruit and vegetable bar. Since day one, it was self-service. The idea behind it is that the kids can pick from the 5 things that are there, and hopefully, and what we've found over the years is that if you offer a variety, then they'll take something they're going to eat and there'll be less waste, rather than give them a half cup of green beans and have them throw it away because they don't like green beans. So we would go back to doing that, which was what we did up until a year and a half ago, and save some money there in terms of waste. We estimated the waste last year in the spring when we compared our costs on the fruit and vegetable bar before and after the changes to be about 15 cents a meal that it cost just in food waste by doing the minimum fruit and vegetable portions. So we would continue to do the healthy, balanced meals. We continue to offer the meal to the free and reduced price approved children at the same level at this point. At least that's what we used in this scenario. We expect the sales to come back to some degree based on going back to some of the popular items, changing the formulations. Again, there's a balance between healthy and kid-friendly and what kids want. And we know that if we offer whole grain pasta and you offer regular pasta and more kids are going to take the regular pasta, that it's going to affect participation. If we say too bad, we're going to serve whole grain pasta no matter what. So we would make some of those decisions. But we wouldn't all of a sudden start serving Taco Bell and changing everything we do, because that doesn't make a lot of sense either, and that's not what Chris indicated that he wanted to see. The a la carte snack variety would remain the same as far as this proposal goes. Without the regulations, without the new smart snacks regulation next year, there's certainly some flexibility to do something different. But based on past history here, and the fact that you're a K-8 district, we haven't had an extensive a la carte program anyway. So we didn't assume that we were going to do a lot more in a la carte sales by adding a bunch of unhealthy snacks into the program. We would just leave it the way it was. But we wouldn't have to take away things, which is what we'll have to do next year with the new guidelines. The cost of milk, once you're not in the National School Lunch Program, then you can participate in the federal milk program. It doesn't require a lot of paperwork, but provides a subsidy of 17 cents a carton, so that helps offset all but about a nickel of the milk cost. So that increased a little bit of the revenue coming back in. And then without the commodity program, we would have higher food costs, but we'd also save on food waste, as I pointed out earlier. So we did take both those things into consideration. It's about a 6 cents increase in food per meal that we would have to pay after you take away the waste and add back in the commodity cost. And then we left the current district paid costs in place. The budget that you have, there's a sheet there that shows $41,000 in client paid costs right now. So some other things to think about, and then I'll open it up for questions and see what you would like to talk about. But you could look at a la carte selections being expanded again. Being a K-8 district, you probably wouldn't want to go too far the other way. But last year we introduced dessert, a small treat, 1 day a week at elementary, and we had a good response from parents. I guess our thought process was looking at the lunches and the lunch boxes that were going open. Most of those kids had a treat in their lunch box, and we felt even though we couldn't offer them as part of the new guidelines because of calories and the grains, that we would offer it a la carte and be able to do that. Again, next year we could do it. It would have to stay within the guidelines of the new smart snacks. But we could look at some other things that we could do from a little bit healthier items to maybe some entree a la carte items. We could change the subsidy for free reduced meals. I know it came up a couple of years ago at the last board meeting when we had a chance to talk about this, so I threw it on there just as a point of reference, because we didn't do that as part of this scenario. And then additional catering sales and vending sales are always a possibility to help the program. Again, middle schools don't have that much vending, but maybe there's vending for after-school activities and so forth that food service could operate and generate some extra revenue to offset the cost of the funding. And then you could look at the district paid costs if you wanted to reduce or eliminate some of those. But those are just the things to think about. There may be some things that you thought about that we didn't bring up. But again, we're not here to recommend that you get out of the program. We're only trying to paint some pictures and explain some things. And we were conservative in our projection with this because it is kind of an unknown that you don't know how much you can get back from those changes after a year and a half. But we do know from talking to students and some of the comments that they had initially and just watching participation numbers that it becomes more and more difficult to give kids what they're used to when schools have standards that are only really school standards.